meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Carter. Here. Huffman.
Here.
McGuire. Here. Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt. Here. Redmond. Here. McDonough.
Here. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item is to approve the agenda for November 27th.
So
please.
moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call on the agenda.
Redmond.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt. Aye. McDonough.
Aye. Approval of the minutes from November 20th, please.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any corrections? Roll call.
Redmond.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt. Aye. McDonough.
Aye. Our next item is a presentation on the Master Operations Funding Agreement for Transitway Services on the Metro Green Line. This is for discussion. No action will be taken. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning, Chair, Committee members. Ed Petrie, Metro Transit. I'm here to present the information for the 2019 operating grant for the Metro Green Line. It's in accordance with the Master Operating Funding Agreement. And I will just proceed. And as I proceed, if you have any questions, just please ask the questions. I also have Mr. Ryan Mateague with me in the audience. He's Director of Light Rail Maintenance. So if there's anything beyond numbers, I'm going to have to bring him up here and we will go from there.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, the Metro Green Line. As you are aware, the Metro Green Line is service from downtown Minneapolis to the Union Depot in St. Paul. 11 miles of 23 stations. Connects with both the Metro Blue Line and the North Star at the Target Field Station. One of the things that we are presently working on is the light rail overhaul program. We always think the Blue Line, the Green Line, like they're brand new trains or brand new systems. But one of the things that we have to do is we have to maintain the assets in a state of good repair. So we are right now going through our first round of overhauls on the Green Line. I believe we're going through like our third or fourth round of overhauls on the Blue Line. But the overhaul program is one of the programs that we maintain and keep going according to manufacturer specs on the vehicles to maintain that asset in a state of good repair. The requirements or the specs of the 2019 operating grant, it's 24-hour service, running about 10-minute frequency on the weekdays, 10 to 15 on the weekends and midday. Plan for around 228 trips, 210 on the weekends. Ridership forecasting next year at 41,157 per weekday, with an annual ridership of just over 13.3 million rides, fleet of 47 vehicles. One of the things if you would be okay, I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about ridership, give you some stats, kind of where we are at compared to the 2019 forecast, kind of puts things in perspective. In 2017, we hit the highest ridership on the Blue Line, Green Line, and North Star. It was our highest ridership in our history. The Green Line rides last year were just over 13,142,000 rides, the highest in its history. Right now, on an October year-to-date basis, we are running 4.5% above 2017 levels. So, good stats there. Overall, light rail ridership is just under between 29 to 30% of overall of Metro Transit's total ridership. The other thing I'd like to talk briefly about is the average weekday rides. You'll see next year we're forecasting 41,157. When we originally applied for the full funding grant agreement with the federal government, we had to forecast out what the ridership would be as of year 2030. The forecast as of year 2030 was 40,940. So you could see next year we're forecasting 41,157. So we are going to exceed that next year by almost 1%. So we're very proud of that. So that's one of the things that I do like to talk about. But rides next year, we're looking at just over 13.3 million, which once again would be the highest in our system history. The overall budget that we're forecasting is $41.6 million for the Metro Green Line. With the Master Operating Funding Agreement that we all agreed to last year, there's a standard 3.15% inflation built into that master operating funding agreement. This is in concert with that then. This is totally in concert with the $41.6 million. On the expense side, very labor-driven organization, just like our bus system. Salaries and benefits are just over $21.7 million, about 52%. We have the propulsion, which is $2.2 million, which is energy to run the trains. We have our utility costs, the regional allocations, which are coming in from Robert Street. Regional allocations would include our portion of the corporate costs, which would be like corporate budget, payroll, accounts payable, those type of major departments that are spread across the system. We have our modal allocations, which are for shared expenses within Metro Transit. And those are for shared expenses like for like the police department, police costs, the finance department, those types of costs that we then spread over the bus and the light rail and the commuter rails. Materials and supplies, which is mainly the repair parts on the rail system, $2.5 million. And other expenses, which mainly include our insurance, advertising, and some professional and technical fees. On the revenue side, it's $41.6 million. We have the state funds, which is $13.3 million, which is state appropriations. Passenger fares are forecasting next year at just over 35%, $14.6 million. Other revenues is about $700,000. That would be the advertising. You're familiar on many of our trains. We have the advertising inside or the wrapped trains. That'll generate about $700,000 of revenue next year. The next two pieces are Hennepin County and Ramsey County. Prior to the CTIB dissolution, that used to say CTIB. But with the CTIB dissolution in 2017, it was agreed upon that that would then be shared by Hennepin County and Ramsey County. So out of the CTIB portion, Ramsey County assumed would be $5.2 million and Hennepin County $7.8 million. How that broke down then was out of the CTIB, 40% went to Ramsey County, 60% went to Hennepin County. So the ask would be then for just under $5.2 million for next year. As we discussed with ridership in 2017, just over $13.1 million, or 13.1 million rides. Everything's dollars to me, Chair. 13.1 million rides. Our budget this year was 13.1 million. As I stated, we're ahead of last year's levels by right now 4.5%. The forecast next year is just over 13.3 million rides. Which now brings us to our final slide. Per the Master Operating Funding Agreement, there are two different funding portions that was agreed to. First of all, we have the annual operating, which is the 5.2 million, the 5,176,000. That is for our day-to-day operations. The day-to-day, week-to-week, running the train, all the salaries, all the basic costs, repair parts, et cetera, for running the train. In the Master Operating, and that is based at a 3.15% annual inflation. The non-annual operating costs, $61,890, those are for non-annual costs that we may incur, which could be, for example, the rail overhaul programs, station rehabs, those types of items that do not occur on an annualized basis. And Ramsey's share of that would be $61,890. The difference between the two of them also is with the annual operating grant agreement, that is an annual amount. At the end of the year, we will then do a final reconciliation. Any surplus that there is generated as of that point in time would then be shared with the funding partners at their contribution levels that they brought in. The non-annual operating agreement, that is trued up every 2 years in the same premise with the non-annual operating. The reason it's a 2-year program versus singular years is because, like I said, it's items that occur on a non-frequent basis. So it would be the $61,890. We take that times 2. We will then hold that in a reserve fund balance, including also Hennepin County's portion and the council's portion. We will then on an annualized basis then report back to say, this is how we spent it, this is how much is left, and then we will then do the true up every 2 years if there's in excess of that 2 times. So the total request for 2019, including both the annual and the non-annual, will be $5,237,895, which is consistent with the 3.15% and consistent with the Master Operation Funding Agreement. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would stand for any questions.
All good news and well done. Questions or comments? Commissioner Reinhardt.
So what happens if you get to the true up and find out that you didn't get enough money from us? Or do you make sure you build in some extra so that there be something left over
We've
versus,
gotten a check every year. I think.
Yes.
Every
Mr. Chair, committee members, one of the things that we would do per the master operating funding agreement, if we see that we're going to have, let's say, some type of major station repair, those types of items, per the master operating funding agreement, we can come back and discuss it with Hennepin County and Ramsey County.
okay. And then, so, the 3.15 is just built in as far as inflation, there's nothing that, I mean, can it go higher than that? Can it go lower than that?
Mr. Chair, committee members, it's built in at 3.15%. That is a standard inflation factor that we had used with CTIB. And just to hold with the standard inflation factor, once again, if we do hit any problems or we foresee, let's say, utility costs or we have some major insurance claims, we could then come back and discuss it with the counties and say, you know, but for this, we're holding at 3.15, but then we could see what we could do. But it's built in for a 5-year period with the standard inflation
Okay.
for a
That was my
5-year
next
period at
question.
3.15.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Ed, thank you for coming and
Thank you.
presenting, and we'll look forward to you and the interim chair, Harry Melander, to come forward back with a check.
We hope so. Look, we always say the big check, like the CTIP days, we bring the big check in, so,
And we
okay.
do appreciate the partnership. It's, I think nationally, this is kind of a unique partnership with locals contributing to operating like we do, and it works well, and that partnership is an important partnership for us, and we appreciate that transit's efforts.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we're gonna move to the administrative items. Commissioner Rettman, you have them today.
Yes, I do. Mr. Chair, members, I move item number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, number 10, and number 11.
Second.
A motion and a second. Roll call on the administrative items.
Rettman?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Huffman?
Aye.
McGuire?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt? Aye. McDonough?
Aye. Our next item is draft Ramsey County 2040 comprehensive plan update and setting the public hearing. The public hearing date would be December 18th at 9 a.m. or as soon thereafter as possible, right here in the council chambers. County Manager O'Connor, is there an actual update or any comments from staff on that, or is it just setting the public?
Just setting the public hearing.
Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve the public hearing for December 18th.
So
So,
moved.
second.
A motion and second. Roll call on that, please.
Rettman?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Huffman?
Aye.
McGuire?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt? Aye. McDonough?
All right. County Manager O'Connor, County Connections.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 comments today, or 2 themes. About 2 weeks ago, we had a group of approximately 20 high school students come from the Kitty Anderson Youth Science Center. So they're associated with the Science Museum of Minnesota. And they came through and did a nighttime or evening tour of Ramsey County properties to better understand what Ramsey County does, what's our role in the world of government, what does local government do for you. It was a diverse, smart, fun group. And they rolled into the county manager's office at about 5:30, and we had a couple of staff that had been leading them through the day. They had an opportunity to meet with different departments as well and hear some pieces as they went. So I just wanted to share a little bit of the follow-up that we received back from policy and planning. At the end of the tour, each student said one word that encapsulated their experience. We heard interested, intrigued, informed, curious, cool. Some said they had no idea we did so much or hadn't really considered how government actually works. We also heard confused, tired, cold. Our big words were sometimes barriers, and our office spaces looked boring and dark. The final comment, though, I really liked from staff was, hey, we can't win them all, but more intentional efforts of engaging with youth in our community can make our work more meaningful and their voices stronger. And I think that's really the takeaway, right? It's not always all flowers and positivity when you bring people into a space and share information that maybe we haven't in the past, but a big shout out to all the staff that were a part of making that day go, policy and planning for coordinating that work. And it was just a really fun opportunity to talk about Ramsey County with a group that absolutely has an interest in where we're going and hasn't always been asked maybe about what that might manifest into. My final update for the day, yesterday at about 1:30, we had a release go out, and I just wanted to briefly announce that Dr. Paul Allwood will be the new Deputy County Manager of our Health and Wellness Service Team. For anyone watching, the Health and Wellness Service Team is social services, financial assistance services, public health, veteran services, community corrections, healthcare services, and community human services administration. It's about 49% of our county budget this year. Dr. Allwood is currently Assistant Commissioner at the Minnesota Department of Health, where he oversees the Health Protection Bureau, comprised of environmental health, infectious disease, prevention and control, and the Public Health Lab. He'll start on December 26th. And I just, through the interview process, we had a number of very strong candidates come through. We were in a spot where, with transitions happening at the state and the work going on here, it was a perfect storm of good things happening for us. I want to thank the community members that participated in the panels as a part of the interview process. We had 11 people on the panels. It was a very diverse array of who sat around those tables, and we found a candidate with an extensive background in public health. He's worked at local, state, and national levels as both a leader and an educator. But most importantly, he really recognizes that health is a primary aspect of broader well-being, and that if we want to talk about building community well-being, we want to grow equity, and we want to ensure we're building healthy communities for all. I look forward to introducing him to you as we near the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Commissioner Rettman, any updates?
Nope.
Commissioner Carter, are you ready?
Yes, I would just say that I was able to attend the Hmong New Year this past weekend, along with a number of you. We had a really good Ramsey County showing. It was a great opportunity to celebrate 40 years of the Hmong New Year and many contributions of the community to all of our community.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to just echo that. It was an amazing event. Lots of people were present. The governor-elect was there, and the mayor, and a lot of legislators, and a lot of, participants in that event. So it was a great day to celebrate. Also, we had a big day at TAB on Wednesday, last Wednesday. Several items that, all their items indirectly or directly affect us, but we were able to approve the resolution that moves Riverview, the streetcar proposal, onto the next step. So we added it to the transportation policy plan and move it on to public comment. We've already had a lot of public comment to get to this point, but now we're going to have even more for that, and the board embraced it, and everyone's excited about this mode of transportation to be started here in Ramsey County, and we're all excited about the Riverview corridor. So I was excited to be able to move that, and also to get the support of the entire TAB board. So it was a great resolution. And then we also talked about our the regional solicitation. This is where we go out for proposals from around the region to get requests for funding. And there's 3 categories that we look at, and one is, they call it roadway expansion, and one they call transit expansion, and one is bike and ped. And what we're finding is that many of our projects have to do with all 3 of them. And so we were just presented with the options, and I know we're all gonna be looking at that. And because many of the projects that we support actually include all 3 of those efforts, we'll be looking at which of those funding scenarios is the one that best suits all of us. And I do believe we're gonna reach an agreement on TAB with that. So there's always a lot of good discussion around the various modes of transportation. And so we're all working on behalf of the region, and also looking out for our own as we call it, balance within the West Metro and the East Metro. So we are it's exciting to be in that phase of the regional solicitation. So we'll be voting and getting more information next month. And then so that was TAB, and now I just want to say that AMC is coming up. This is our Association of Minnesota Counties annual meeting, and it starts this coming Sunday, and it will be going Sunday, Monday, Tuesday here in the cities. It's in Bloomington this year. And this is where we all gather with our committees, and we vote on our agenda, our policy agenda to bring to the legislature, and where we come together to vote for our new executive board for our association. And many of us here are very involved in that. And so that's coming up this next week.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Ortega. Thank you. Commissioner Huffman.
Just a quick mention, last night, of course, we were all at our Truth and Taxation hearing, and great crowd, probably 100-ish people. It was surprised me only maybe a third of them spoke, or a smaller group spoke. Message was very clear, and that is it's tough times for some people, for a lot of people, and taxes sometimes don't help them. Jim, I thought your comments at the end of the night were wonderful in terms of helping people understand, A, we work really hard to keep that budget down, but B, what we do touches all of our lives, including those that need the most. And so I thought your words were wonderful, but a good night, good conversation with a lot of constituents last night.
Thank you. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Well, and I'll just piggyback on that. I had, as budget chair, it's always, you know, a very important time to have that communication and the transparency. And we have, this is the second of our hearings, and I thought it went very well. A lot of people were there, and I had a lot of comments afterwards, especially there was one of my constituents that was new to the community, and he talked about how educational it was, and because he didn't really know what to expect. And so there were a number of people that were there, as far as I could tell, the first time, and really appreciated you know, the information. And yes, it is hard, depending on, you know, what has happened with your property values and your taxes, but people had really good conversations, and I think that's what's most important about that.
Great, thank you. I'll just add a little bit to that, because you know, we continued to revise how we do the hearings, and we made some changes last night. I think they were all for the positive, and I want to recognize the work that staff has put in, and then Commissioner Reinhardt working with you as budget chair on those changes. And I think, you know, they're directly related to our commitment to community engagement and to do a better job and more authentic in that. And all those changes were really focused in on that. And what I felt reassured about, and I want to make, again, recognizing the staff and what we did there, is even though a number of folks were, you know, speaking about the impact that their property taxes had, the increases, the valuations, many of them ended with comments about how well organized, how informative it was, and took the time to thank us for that. And I think that's a good sign when we do community engagement right. Even if the message or the impact isn't necessarily always positive for the individual, how we do it makes a difference, and it matters. And last night, we heard that a number of times from a number of the folks that participated and shared their thoughts. And afterwards, that, you know, all of us stayed and connected with many of them afterwards, and I think we were all hearing that same thing. So again, thanks to Ryan, to you, and to Karen, and to Chris, and John, and all the folks that helped put that together last night.
Commissioner,
Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You may also want to mention the other thing that we added was letting people know that their comments would be forwarded to others.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that was another one of the changes is, and we mentioned a number of times, and I brought it up, and Ryan and I had talked with one of my constituents, is making sure they understood that certainly they can show up at the city and the school district's public hearings and carry their message forward, but we wanted to reaffirm and commit to them that all those comments would be forwarded on to them that we heard last night, so they would be a part of the record whether they were able to attend the city or the school districts. And that's another, I think, positive change in residents first there. I think that's a good example of that, is really trying to, you know, meet the residents where they're at and making sure that their voices are heard. So thank you for that. With no further business, we will adjourn. No county board meeting next week, as Commissioner McGuire pointed out. We'll all be at AMC, and then we'll be back here December 11th, where we make final approval on the budget. One last quick announcement. Monday night is the big dinner, and that's when former County Manager Julie Kleinschmidt is going to be recognized for her leadership over the past years, and hopefully a number of us will be able to be there and celebrate that with her. With that, we're adjourned.